Hey, my name is Matthew Kinch. This is my critical reflection for learning and development for TFA. Um, as I said, my name is Matthew Kinch. I teach at Wellington Secondary College, and the lesson that I'm going to be reviewing is a grade 8 maths lesson. So in grade 8 at the moment, we are currently looking at algebra. We decided to start this at the start of the term just to give the kids something interesting, because I think they were quite excited to start algebra, which is strange. But when I mentioned that we're doing algebra, they were quite happy about it. So we thought we'd give them something nice and exciting to start with at the start of the term. So I teach at Wellington Secondary College, which is in the northwest coast of Tasmania. Previously to teaching algebra, we had done integers, we had done percentages, probability as well. So algebra it's getting towards the end of the year, starting to get them prepared for year 9. So for this lesson that I'm reviewing, we're looking at combining like terms. So we just previously started with our introduction about how maths equations can also have letters in them, or variables, and how variables can represent a number. So this one, the lesson before this one, we were looking at how we can substitute, if we know the value of a variable, how we can substitute that number into the variable to actually create the equation. And yeah, this lesson here was growing on that and actually combining like terms. If we didn't know the value of the number, how might we simplify the equation? So the way that I suppose I can link this in with the constructivism, which has been talked about in this unit, is that the kids have an unconstructed knowledge of how subtraction and addition works. For instance, they think that you can add 5 and 6 together, 11. However, they also think if it's 5a plus 6b, they can add that together to be 11ab. However, that's not the case. So their preconceived knowledge of how addition and subtraction works actually was hard to dislodge. But they also knew a lot about it. So as Nuthall talks about, he says most kids know about 50% of what you're actually going to teach them already. However, that preconceived notion that subtraction and addition can actually can be applied to anything is hard to dislodge. As Jones, Lynch, and Reesink actually said. They said basically if that preconceived knowledge is there, and it's very hard to change their perceptions of what subtraction and addition can be. So that was the hard thing for me to kind of explain, that the terms have to be similar. You can't just add them together. In terms of the lesson, how I had it run, so as I'll attach the lesson plan for this. It started off with a do now. It was activating prior knowledge of substitution. So we looked at how what we did the last lesson. So I gave them a few equations on the board, and they substituted in the values that I gave them. It was fine. And then what happened is I directed them to Canvas, which is actually our online learning platform for the Department of Education for Tasmania. By doing that, the kids had the option of going through it at their own pace. I also had it up on the smartboard at the same time. So for kids that struggled to log in or couldn't get it up, they could have the option of watching it on the board. Now on Canvas, basically what was done was the method was shown for them, how they could combine like terms. So I've also attached the page basically of how I set that up. Like I said, kids would get working at their own pace. So I told them to read through it. I read through it on the board as well. We went over a work example together. There's an example on the page itself. Now, once we'd done that, I gave them the quiz to do. Now, this quiz had unlimited attempts. So it was 5 or 6 questions. 6 questions, unlimited attempts for them to practice what we just talked about. So that was their use of ICT. Now, for the kids that didn't have access, I also put the questions up on the smartboard, and I also put the question on the whiteboard, just to give them that consistent kind of message. I forgot to mention also the learning goals and the success criteria are always up on the whiteboard. I put that up on the whiteboard to start the lesson, and they remain there for the whole lesson. So therefore, they can always refer back to what we're actually learning, whether they forget what they're doing. So we did the quiz. Like I said, they had a limited attempt set. They could try and get them all right if they wanted to. I didn't mind, as long as I walked around and circulated and understood they had some sort of idea of what they were doing. That was fine. Once they finished the quiz, they were then given different differentiated options as to what they could complete in the textbook. Now, I've also attached that. That's also part of the page. So there was different questions for different standards. So what I said there's a mild, there's a medium, and there's a spicy standard. So obviously, people who thought they might struggle or weren't really feeling up to it today would do the mild, whereas the people who knew they could push themselves would strive for the spicy. I like that I put it back on them, gave them the opportunity. I might have pushed a few or encouraged a few to do the spicy one, but at the end of the day, it was ultimately their choice, so that they were in charge of their own learning. Another thing I did with the ICT is I allowed them to actually upload their answers to Canvas, so I could actually look at it all on Canvas, which makes it easier for me to mark. It also gets them used to using ICT in the future, obviously, when they have to upload things in college or university, which is pretty standard. So I suppose the way I catered for the diversity is I had different modes. The different modes of how we could learn. So they could do it on the board, they could do it on their ICT, they could do it in their books. I also gave them the option of being differentiated. Now, in terms of my critical reflection of the lesson, and if it was engaging or not, it's hard to say. I know most of the kids I walked around, I'd say 95%, understood what we're doing, got it perfectly. Okay, once we went through it 4 or 5 times, they actually understood that, okay, this is what life terms is about. So if I'm measuring engagement on whether or not the understanding is there, then yes, absolutely. Whether or not they actually really enjoyed doing maths, it's another thing, but I think they appreciated the fact that it was online, because obviously they're an online generation, they're used to being online. I think they appreciated more the fact they had the choice to do it online. They had the quiz to do. So some kids are quite competitive, so it's healthy competition, so they can actually have a crack at the quizzes and challenge themselves against their friends. The quizzes could also be done. I was happy with discussion with other people. The textbook stuff was done by themselves. But I think they enjoyed it as much as they can enjoy maths, purely because I gave them that option to do it online, and I think algebra really interests them as much as it scares the absolute bejesus out of some people. It actually interests some people as well. So I thought all in all it was pretty good. If I was to make any improvements, it might be around being more relative to some of their life experiences, or something that might affect them in the future. Something they find is relevant. But apart from that, I think it went pretty well. Thank you.